My name is Eric Jolly, and I am the President and CEO of St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. Because we're a community foundation, we have the good fortune of partnering with both nonprofits and donors throughout the state of Minnesota. These relationships give us a front row seat to tremendous acts of generosity and impact, of courage, compassion, love. And each day, especially during these challenging times in all corners of our state, from our smallest towns to our largest cities, people are working together to create an equitable, just, and vibrant Minnesota where all communities and people thrive. In this present moment, we'd like to share these stories with you. I am so thrilled today to be here in this present moment with Dr. Joi Lewis. Dr. Lewis works with the Healing and Justice Foundation as well as Joy Unlimited. Dr. Joi, can you tell me, what are the issues that are impacting the African American community? What are you seeing out there?
There is so much. I think that it's important to sort of situate this moment, both in terms of the fact that we are in the middle of a world pandemic, and at the same time in the last couple of weeks where a different level of gaze on the pandemic, of which I will call racism, and particularly around anti-Blackness, during the death of Mr. George Floyd here in Minneapolis. Those two particular events have really accelerated and amplified a lot of the really horrific, traumatic things that have been happening not just in this present moment, but also in the history of African Americans. So really holding both of those things.
I hear you when you say it's amplified. There have been times before where it's been amplified. This somehow feels different. It feels as if there's an international set of accomplices who want to help change this situation.
This moment does feel different. I mean, I think it feels different just because though there have been things that have been caught on camera before, but this particular way in which there was a clear disconnection from humanity, I think has touched people's hearts. What part of your humanity has to be shut off for someone to be able to do that? So I think that has touched people in a particular sort of way that if we as humanity can get to that place, we're at a dangerous place. And how do we actually interrupt that?
You're in the middle of this. You're out in community trying to facilitate healing and trauma care. How do you do that? What are you doing?
This work is about the fact of like, how do we reconnect to our humanity, right? Which really got interrupted. So we really look at, I do my work looking at radical self-care as resistance. So when we talk about healing, we use radical self-care as a practice. What does that mean? How do we get folks together in community to meditate, to breathe together, to move our bodies so we can interrupt that trauma? We look at epigenetics, right? And the way in which it's not just a trauma that's happening now, but those things have been passed down through our DNA. But very, very excited for the fact that there's also neuroplasticity, right? And that we can rewire our reaction to the trauma. I used to be a raggedy revolutionary, right? And what I mean by that is that I wasn't taking care of myself. I think that the revolution has to be healing.
So you're giving people permission to care for themselves so they'll have the strength to care for community.
Absolutely. Or we won't be able to show up for the revolution if we are not well.
Where have you seen some examples of leadership and innovation that give you hope?
So there is a local Black artist, dancer, Deja Joel, who has been leading what she's calling body prayers, and particularly has been doing this work with calling forth Black dancers around the Twin Cities to meet at 38th in Chicago, and working together to sort of dance through the grief and the trauma, inviting other folks in the community. Another local dancer, V. Bohemian, have been leading sage walks where folks are taking sage, burning it, and going through the neighborhoods to cleanse. And so, folks are just really finding so many different innovative ways to be together and to interrupt trauma and to do it in a connected and public way.
I like that phrase, to interrupt trauma, because the trauma doesn't go away when the services for Mr. Floyd are over. The
Correct.
still there. I love the idea of taking back 38th in Chicago.
Yes.
Washing away in our head,
yes,
in our heart, that recurring nightmare, and saying, my body belongs here. This is my space again.
And seeing that it's possible, because maybe you're there and you didn't think, or how do you, because we have to replace these sort of tapes, right, that have been on replay. And I think that's also that what has been different. I will own, I did not watch the video, right? I saw the picture and that was enough, because again, back to epigenetics, the things that are already playing in my head, I don't need to add that to my psyche. I'm glad that folks that it was available for people, a young Black woman, to be as brave, to take the time to actually record that. And, that I hope that this is not a moment, but a movement, right? For things to never to return the way that they were.
I hope so. I can't fully comprehend what it was like for that young woman to stand there with a camera while watching a camera on 4 armed men, one of whom is committing murder.
Yes.
And to stand in that space.
Yes.
Without any chance of feeling safe.
Yes.
No reason to call the police to help you. And that courage was stunning.
Yes.
Do you have any stories that you can share of someone else in our community who's inspired you with their resilience or their actions?
Yes, indeed. I love this question, particularly because I'm in awe all the time. I'm inspired by so many folks, and there's so many people who are doing things. One, another such person, another local artist, Tish Jones, is leading some work through True Art Speak, and it's called the Village Project. And they are doing a resource for families, particularly led by Black youth. And there's opportunity for folks to give free resources that are including things like meals, books on race and identity, restorative justice and tea, doing therapy sessions, movement and meditation. And also they have like a community resource guide and more. They're doing this in partnership with ArtsUs as well. And so I think there are a lot of Black young people who are out and sort of and leading a lot of these movements. And I just love the fact that it's not just about them putting their bodies on the line, but that Tish and some of her collaborators are also creating space for these young people to feel back up and to be healed back again, to radical self-care as resistance, and seeing that happening.
I think that's wonderful. When I speak with you, I'm reminded not just of your name, Dr. Joi, but of your character and your hope. When it's a greeting, when we give a greeting in Cherokee, the rough translation, in English we always say, "Hi, how are you?" And we're stunned if somebody says "not so good."
Correct.
In Cherokee, our question usually to our children is, "Are you full of joy?" And if a child answers no, then our job is to help them find their joy. Joy doesn't deny your trauma. It doesn't deny your sadness. It doesn't deny what's wrong, but it helps you see something in your life that gives you hope. How do you find your joy?
Oh, I love it. So one, I always just have to give thanks to my mom, who named me Joy. And I say that particularly because my mother passed away when I was 7 months old. And she had cancer. And it took me a long time to come to the fact that, wow, even in all of that pain, she named me Joy. So every time I say my name and every time someone says my name, I'm reminded of joy is this sort of contradiction, and that I've just had to learn that joy and pain run from the same faucet. They run from the same faucet.
Now, this is such a pleasure for me, and it's been great to get to know you a little better. How can people support your work and your community?
Yeah, thank you again for asking me. So our work through the Healing Justice Foundation at www.healingjusticefoundation.org is an opportunity for folks to be able to support us through donations. Also, we are doing our work in partnership with the Minnesota Healing Justice Network, where there is a network of about 85 community healers. And the issue is this: there is a lot of what I call invisible emotional labor that is happening, mostly unpaid invisible emotional labor from community healers and folks who are on the ground who are helping people to be able to process through both the current trauma and the historic trauma. And we have to be able to build a system that will support that work, not just in time of crisis, right? So just wanting people to amplify, tell folks about the work, and also speaking out, I think, to our legislators, to folks who have some of the power about making this kind of work sustainable, really looking to do more work around truth and reconciliation, and how do we actually bring folks who feel like that they don't have anything in common together to be able to do this hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joi Lewis, for being with us, our community, and with me today in this present moment.